How's it going, guys? Right now you're watching some of the God of War footage in the background, and obviously it's not mine, but still I really wanted to talk about this, and as well at the same time including a gameplay that's pretty much up to par of the conversation and in general the article that I'm going to be reading out of. The links are going to be down in the description if you want to read it for yourself, but I don't see the point of that due to I'm going to be reading out. Obviously at the very end of the article I'm going to be giving my own opinion and thoughts, just, my impressions anyway. So, I'm going to be talking about God of War, the mythology of Kratos, and so the story till this far. This April, the God of War series will be returning after 5 years of silence. Kratos desolated the Greek Pantheon and a world which they ruled over, but he somehow stolen away to the Norse realm to conduct a quiet life in isolation. How did he wind up there? What a trial of body did the ghost of Sparta leave in his unbridled wake towards the, Olympus? How did his bloody descent into revenge go from bad to unthinkable? We've gathered our scrolls and compiled the chronicles of the symposies of the God of War. It will give you the full tale of Kratos' unbearable, unbelievable life. So before the God of War, Spartan youth are stripped to their innocence and made into relentless warriors early on. The Kratos' origins was no different. He proves himself beyond his peers, and while his brother, Deimos, might have been his equal, he was taken away by Ares and Athena in his youth, as revealed in the PSP title of Ghost of Sparta. In memory of him, Kratos branded himself with the red tattoos in the vein of his brother's unconventional birthmarks. Years later, the comic series reveals that Kratos is promoted as a leader and marries Lysandra, resulting in the birth of their child, Calliope. However, she's born with an illness, and due to Sparta's law to slay the weak, Kratos sets out the urgent mission to find the ambrosia of Asclepius, which heals all the wounds and diseases. Little does he know that some of the Olympians have struck a wager, selecting promising mortals to see who can get the ambrosia first. One of these champions happens to be the barbarian Alaric. After the others champions fall to both men, Kratos comes out on top and returns home in time to save his daughter from being sacrificed. His deeds lead him to become a revered captain, but Hades has other plans for Alaric. Throughout the first God of War reveals that the god of the underworld sends the barbarian against the Kratos' army to wipe them out for some time later. Sheer number win the day of Alaric. But before he could end Kratos, the desperate Spartan calls out upon Ares to slay his enemies in exchange for his life. In doing so, Ares sears the blades of chaos to Kratos' arms, which he used to dissipate Alaric. From that point forward, Ares commands Kratos to kill everyone, whether the innocent or the guilty, for the god's glory, so he could attain favor with Zeus. But Kratos' last test lies in destroying a village devoted to Athena. After slaughtering its people, he discovers that Ares had placed his family there as a trick, who he had murdered unwittingly. Ares, through his perfect warrior, wouldn't have held back by a familiar of the ties anymore, but Ares' assumption of the Kratos' depravity were misplaced. God of War Ascension. Kratos has left a husk of a warrior after killing his family, and Ares isn't going to have it. The mortal pledged his life to Ares with blood oath, and breaking those isn't taken lightly by the Furies. These primordial of the beings chronicles promises made to the gods and internally punish those who go against them. However, since they commit themselves to Ares, they let his abominable act of tricking the Spartans slide. The God of War wants to make Kratos the perfect warrior to help him destroy the Olympians one day, and the Furies are united in this goal. However, the son of Ares and the Furies, Orcus, betrayed them in seeing how their plot for revenge has blinded their judgment. While the Furies has done their work dampening Kratos' memories so he would fight again, Orcus comes to Kratos and tells him he must break free of their illusions, and he's forced servitude to Ares. The Spartan's new quest leads him to capture by the Furies, who he kills off one by one. Once he returns to his lonely home in Sparta, Orcus reveals that the only way he and Kratos can be released from Ares' control is if Orcus dies. As long as he lives in the Oath Keeper, Kratos and Orcus' ties with Ares will persist. Even though he initially refuses, Kratos reluctantly ends Orcus' life. By that act, the full memories of his past flood back into vivid detail, in hope that the other Olympians will right Ares' wrongs. Kratos pledges his allegiance to them. God of War, Chains of Olympus. Kratos' many exploits and services of the gods take him across the Greek world. One such task leads him to Attica to fend off an invading Persian army, where he dispatches their king and rampages Basilics. Shortly afterwards, Kratos witnesses the sun, known as Helios, falling from the sky. The world is then cast into the shadow, allowing Morpheus, their primordial god of dreams, to cast the Olympians into the deep slumber. Before falling asleep, Athena pleads with Kratos to save Helios so the gods can awaken once more. After reaching the sun god's temple, he awakens the fire steeds that pulls it through the sky, which take Kratos to their master in the underworld. Kratos eventually sails to Persephone's palace of the Styx River and stumbles across his daughter running around the place. He demands the Queen of the Dead to take him to Calliope, but she says he must relinquish all of the evil within himself, and therefore his power. To be with her is the heavenly fields of the Elysium. Once Kratos gives away his hope, Persephone reveals that she freed the Titan Atlas to capture Helios, who would use the god's power to destroy the pillar of the world. In doing so, mankind and the gods will fall with it, and even though Persephone would perish as well. It was her only way to having revenge on Hades and Zeus for tricking her in the past. Kratos may be able to relate to Persephone, but he realizes that his daughter will die if he doesn't stop the suicidal queen. The only way to do that is to re-embrace his sin to gain back his power. So even though Kratos has known he'll never see Calliope again, she will at least live. He leaves her behind and defeats Persephone, chaining Atlas to the world of Underside in the place of the broken pillar. With Helios restored, Kratos falls from the sun's god temple as it returns to the sky. While he welcomes death, Helios and Athena saves him from his ultimately demise. The gods have bigger plans in store. Now, God of War. After 5 more years of errands for the gods, things come to a head when the Hydra and Ares forced almost decimate Kratos' fleet of ships. He asks Athena how much longer he must fight until his memories are taken from him, so she gives him a final task. Save Athens from being destroyed by Ares, having despite the gods of war for so long. The task proves to be a win-win situation. With the secret blessing of the Olympians, Kratos seeks out the oracle of Athens and learns he must use the power within the Pandora's box to defeat Ares. Kratos travels to a nearby desert in search of the Titan Kronos, who has a temple chained to his back and contains the fabled box. With numerous traps and monsters no mortal could ever beat, Kratos was the first to conquer them all and secure the Pandora box. Just before leaving the temple, Ares throws a pillar from Athens that impales Kratos, allowing him to steal the box. However, even the underworld couldn't hold Kratos as he fought his way back to Athens. His return surprises Ares and gives Kratos the chance to open Pandora's box, which turns him into a giant after he absorbs the power inside. He gives Ares his due by impaling him in return and saving what remains of Athens. Even then, the Olympians only forgive Kratos' past rather than allowing him to forget it. This drives him to cast himself from a cliff, but Athena denies him death again. Proclaiming that a new god of war is needed, he reluctantly accepts the offer in the hope that he can drown out his sorrow by immersing himself in all he knew now: unhinged bloodshed. God of War comic. Kratos catches wind the devotees of the Ares are planning to use the ambrosia to resurrect the descendants of God of War. But since Kratos hadn't destroyed the source of it over a decade ago, he retreated the path he took to save his daughter in order to root the ambrosia out once and for all. His voice may have been subdued, but the trip only made him reflect more on the friends and family he'd lost to the gods and his own hubris. God of War, Ghost of Sparta. Even godhood wasn't a salve for Kratos' memory. On top of this, new visions surface of his mother being held captive in Atlantis. Unable to shake their significance, he lays siege to Poseidon's domain and learns that his mother and his brother Deimos is being held by Thanos in the domain of death. This leads Kratos back to Sparta, where the Temple of Ares resides. He finds the key that was used to access the Forbidden Realm long ago and travels there. When he finds his brother in his shackles, Deimos nearly kills Kratos out of rage until Thanatos intervenes. Nevertheless, Kratos still saves his brother from falling off the cliff, and they would work together to bring God of Death to his demise. However, their reunion is short-lived since Deimos perishes in the fight. With no familiar of the ties to hold on to anymore, Athena comes to grant Kratos' full godhood, but he shoves her away out of despite, warning her that the Olympians will pay for what they've done to his mother and brother. God of War 2. Just as Ares had proven problematic to the gods of his obsession with approval, Kratos will be the opposite. His disdain for them only grew in Olympus. The only way he finds solace is leading Sparta to conquer the Greece. Athena warns Kratos that there are only so much of Olympians can tolerate, but he shuns her and assaults the city of Rhodes. During the assault, Zeus rids Kratos of his power and kills him with a blade of Olympus. The hands of Hades begin to pull him in the underworld, but the Titan telepathically call upon Kratos and aid him to escape death. Their leader, Gaia, explains how the Titan were procurers of the Olympians, who were either murdered or imprisoned, so Zeus could rise to power. Once again, Kratos' revenge aligned with the others. He must find the Sisters of Fate, who control time and destiny, return to the moment of his death, and seize the blade of the Olympus. After meeting a series of icons from Greek mythology and his own past, Kratos confronts two of the Sisters of Fate. At one point, he's sent back to his own timeline, with one of them attempting to prevent Kratos from defeating Ares. He prevents this paradox and murders the duo, followed by the final sister, who controls the threads of all lives. He finds his own and returns to the moon, where Zeus kills him, taking the sword of Olympus and nearly conquering the king of the gods. However, Athena sacrifices herself to save her father, revealing to Kratos in death that she and him are siblings. Even as the son of Zeus, Kratos is not swayed from his revenge, and as the Olympians plot their revenge, the ghost of Sparta travels back in time to bring the Titans to the present age, who begins scaling mountain of the Olympus with a war to end all wars. God of War 3. The game picks up the seconds after the previous game. Poseidon of the purse to attack Kratos and falls before him, causing a Greek world enveloped by the seas. After ascending at the mountain of Olympus with Gaia, Zeus sends Kratos with her careening back down with a lightning strike. With Zeus in her sight, she let Kratos fall down to the underworld, who now vows revenge on her kind of using him. He then meets Athena's spirit there, who offers to help Kratos for mysterious reasons. She gives him enough power to tear his way through the Hades, Helios, Hermes, Hercules, Hera, and Kronos. And he kills them all. The Earth's involvement in the darkness plagues and the world of the living and the dead colliding. His goals all the while is to retrieve Pandora's box, which could only be opened by finding Pandora herself and destroying the chains of the balance that kept Olympus and the underworld in check. After doing these things, the flames and gate that kept the box locked away are freed. With Zeus standing in the way, Kratos briefly subdues him and opens the box, only to discover that it's empty. Gaia returns and a battle ensues between all three. The Gaia is killed. In last-ditch efforts, Zeus attempts to conquer Kratos' mind by amplifying his grief and pain, but the spirits of Pandora guides him back to reality, giving the god of war his final wish to silence Zeus. With the world concerned, Athena appears to congratulate Kratos, coming to realize that she was wrong about Pandora's box. She had thought Kratos had absorbed the evils that were locked away in it to defeat Ares, but in fact, the evils had consumed the gods, which explains their behavior and why their death resulted in terrible things being unleashed. Kratos had, in fact, absorbed the retained power of hope that Athena had stored in the box. Demanding that she would be given the power to restore the world, Kratos realizes that the evil of the selfishness has infected her, and decided to impale himself to give hope to what remains of humanity. With that, Kratos leaves everything in chaos and dies, defying the gods of his last breath, or so it seems. Now, God of War, the 2018. Kratos' body is no longer lying in the Olympus ruins once the greater role in God of War 3. We know now what was just the beginning of a new chapter in Kratos' life. However, his fresh start with a new family has turned for the worse with the death of his second wife. The disgraced God of War and his newfound son Atreus sets out to take her ashes to the highest peak in the lands. Kratos' greatest challenge lied ahead. Not just the enemies he'll face, but also holding back his grief and anger to raise his son right. We'll see if he can deny the odds yet again in a matter of weeks. Alright, that was pretty damn good. Anyway, well, reading out this article, it kind of made me realize of his sympathies, of his struggles, challenges. It kind of made me want to, like, I don't know, support this sort of character. I understand that he was in so much rage and gods betray him constantly. It must be getting very difficult for him, and sure is. And now his second wife, just by the death of her, my god, I'm surprised the way he does not break down, but I feel like also he doesn't break down is due to he has his son to keep him standing. I don't know. This should be very interesting to find out even more as soon as we're gonna get our hands on the new game in the April of the God of War 2018 version anyway. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe as always. Hopefully you have enjoyed this, and yeah, peace out guys.